June is finally over. There can't be a June swoon. We are in July. Happy July 1st. What a glorious day in Mets land after a day where they didn't play. And my God, you feel better waking up the next day knowing that your team did not lose a game, knowing that they did not break your heart. Now, they didn't fire Eric Chavez, which they probably should have, but you know what? Go get it done. You're home. 6-game homestand. The Brewers, the Yankees, Subway Series, 4th of July, great giveaways, fireworks. A massive week if you're a Mets fan if you're going to the game. So, now's the time. The calendar flip. Maybe that helps, but now's the time. 85 games in, 77 to go. You're 2 games out of the NL East lead. You're a game and a half up over the wild card spot. You're a half game up over the Brewers who you face tonight. And they are your pitching matchups this week. They don't really favor the Mets. Tonight is a toss-up with Holmes and Peralta. Tomorrow doesn't look pretty with Tidwell versus Mizorowski. They're a young phenom. And then Thursday, Peterson versus Quintana. Well, listen, you could win Thursday, although Jose Quintana, I'm sure he's going to pitch with a chip on his shoulder going up against his former team. And the mystery of why the Mets didn't just give him $4 million, which would have looked good right now. But, you can win 2 out of 3 here. Tomorrow you look smoked because you're being idiotic and starting Tidwell again over Nolan McLean. But, go get him, kid. I think this is clearly Tidwell's last chance. And also Sean Manaea is back next week. So if Tidwell gets shelled, I think that's it for him this year. I think the Mets look to probably trade him if they can. But, I think we'll eventually see McLean if he gets shelled. But you got Manaea back here potentially next week against the Orioles. So this could be Tidwell's last stand, and hopefully he can get the job done. You're watching Mets Daily. I'm your host, Jake Brown, at Jake Brown Radio. Please smash that thumbs up on this video. Click that subscribe button. Share the Mets Daily channel with any Met fan. We drop a show every single day, a 10-minute chicken nugget size show. Easy. You can be on the toilet, watch, and it's over, just like that. Not a long podcast. It's a video-only show. No audio platforms. If you don't know me, I'm Jake Brown. I hosted the Amazing But True podcast at the New York Post for 4 years. I did the Mets Magic podcast with Sick Media last year. I've covered the Mets for WFAN, SNY. I've covered the Mets for a while. I've loved this team for a while. I'm a fan that tells it how it is, raw and unfiltered, only here on Mets Daily. And you want more of that, you can become a Mets Daily Insider to get our exclusive weekend video where I talked about all Mets interviews in my career I've done from 1969 to today and nuggets and stories behind them that I've never told anywhere else. That's only on Mets Daily Insider. Click that join button below, and it's just $5 a month, and you get that video every weekend for free, and then our watch party during the week, one day during the week for free as well, and giveaways beginning probably later this month. Once we get some more members, we'll start doing a giveaway every month. So a couple more members, we'll start doing that giveaway. So I appreciate the support. Listen, now or never. I think Chavez firing was the move to make to kind of shake things up. But if you're confident with your coaching staff, now's the time to show it. Now's the time to show you can hit. Like, this team's been good at home, but they're playing bad baseball. And you got 2 good teams coming in. Milwaukee, who is a playoff team right now, and the Yankees, who are a playoff team in the Subway Series 4th of July weekend. It's going to be buzzing at Citi Field. And, give the fans a reason to be buzzing. Like I've talked about, they're showing up in numbers. They're giving you the support. You're not really supporting back the last 16 games going 3-13. So it's a 16-game stretch at 162 that maybe you'll look back on and be like, wow, we sucked them, but by God, we're a good team. If the Mets want to make them a better team, they'll go out and sign Matt Gage. Matt Gage, a name that maybe sounds a little familiar to you because he's been with the Mets on a couple of stints, but hasn't pitched in the major leagues with the Mets. Matt Gage has had an interesting journey. First off, most recently today, as you're watching this, he was just DFA'd by the Tigers. And by the way, he hadn't given up a run this year. Not limited work, but he hadn't given up a run. He is elected free agency. The Mets should be all over this guy. They already know him. He's been in their system as most recently as last year. He was actually in the big leagues briefly, but didn't get an appearance. Listen to this story. So Matt Gage is 32 years old. He's from Johnstown, New York. So he's from New York. He went to college at Siena. So this guy knows New York. Now, that's a little bit more upstate. But now he doesn't have a ton of major league experience. He only has 22 games, 25 and a third innings, but a 1.42 ERA this year in 5 2/3, 7 hits, 0 runs, only 3 strikeouts, but the guy hasn't given up a run. He last pitched in the big leagues in 2023, 6 2/3, 2 runs, a 2.7 ERA, and 2022, 13 innings, 2 earned runs, a 1.38 ERA. So in the brief time that the lefty has gotten, he has been very effective at the big league level. Now, like I said, he was with the Mets in the minor leagues in 2018. Then he went to Mexico. Then he was in the minor leagues. Then he finally made the majors. Then back to the minors. He was with the Mets again in the minor leagues in July most recently. Was called up when Jake Diekman was designated for assignment, who did not work out. But he did not appear in the big leagues. He had a 3.92 ERA for AAA Syracuse. So he was with the Tigers this year. He was good, but, they promoted Dietrich Ains to this past week, and they have DFA Gage, and now he's available. So this is a classic Stearns scrap heap pickup, but this guy's actually put up good numbers when he's given the opportunity. A guy like Jose Castillo was getting rocked. So if I'm the Mets, you pick this guy right up. Like Dickie Lovelady was good in the minors, wasn't great in the majors. He has not been good so far for the Mets. They can make a pretty easy move if they wanted to and just get rid of him, or they could keep him and have another lefty. They can move Waddell and get Gage here, but this reeks of a Mets move. Again, with the trade deadline, still 4 weeks away, July 31st, it's hard to really get anyone, major in the trade market. So assuming the Mets get Gage, let's take a look at what the bullpen would look like, because, if Gage is as good as he's been, and again, it's brief work, so take it with a grain of salt, this Mets bullpen looks a lot better than it has in past weeks, and I include Brooks Raley on here because Raley has progressed to Double-A. He's looked good in rehab. I believe he hasn't given up a run yet. I assume probably first game after the All-Star break, Brooks Raley is back. So this is a late July pre-deadline, assuming no more injuries look. Diaz, Garrett, Stanek, who's pitched well lately, Raley, who will be a massive addition to the bullpen, Budo, who has been lights out, assuming they add Gage, Daniel Nunez, who has looked really sharp, and then the bottom three. But those first seven, you're fairly confident that's not bad. Now, again, they're going to add more. I think at the deadline, they're going to get a free agent, whether it's Chapman, whether it's a Bednar. We've talked about a lot of the names, and we'll continue to talk about that as July progresses. But those first seven, you feel pretty good about. The bottom three, you don't feel great. Huascar Braziman has really started to struggle, but when he is on, he is one of their better relievers. Dickie Lovelady, who I doubt he lasts the month, but he's on the team right now. And same for Waddell, who actually hasn't been bad out of the bullpen. But, that bullpen clearly needs another arm, but it's not that bad. It is not a dreadful bullpen. If Gage is effective and a healthy Brooks Raley, you're more confident in that bullpen than you were maybe a few weeks ago. So if I'm the Mets, I would pick up Matt Gage. Should the Mets pick up Luis Severino? And to pick him up, I mean, trade for him. That's been the name that's been talked about a lot, since he commented about the ballpark and, his how it's a minor league park and he's pitched terrible, in that ballpark this year. Well, he's not wrong. At home, he's 0-7 with a 6.79 ERA this year in that minor league ballpark in Sacramento. On the road, and this includes a rough start against the Yankees in the Bronx the other day. 8 starts, 2-2, 3.04 ERA, and 47 in the third inning. So he's looked a lot better on the road. Now, only 26 strikeouts, so a lot of ground balls, a lot of outs. But, you got to consider it. Now, it would depend on his contract, folks, because it's a lot of money. Do the Mets really want to eat all that with the luxury tax? Do they want to eat all that money? If I'm the Mets, hey, maybe eat the money and say, how about you include the guy I talked about, Shea Langeliers? How about we get Severino and Langeliers? We eat all the money, and you give us both of them in a trade. Now, it might take a few prospects. Severino on a 3-year, $67 million deal. He has the potential opt-out after next year. He's an interesting piece. I would not mind Luis Severino if they're paying some of it, and if they're not, include us Shea Langeliers. $25 million next year. The player options $22 million in 2027. He's 31 years old. Still pretty much in the prime of his career. I think the fans love Sevy. He loves it here. I do think he would be a good clubhouse addition. We'll see if the Mets do it. It would depend on what it would cost. And again, can they find a way to maybe get a package of him and Shea Langeliers? Because that makes that deal so much more intriguing. You get a frontline starter and you get a new starting catcher. Take on the money maybe. And you give them, I don't know, Blade Tidwell, Jet Williams, and another prospect. We'll see. But I'd be intrigued by Severino. Now, I would rather get Seth Lugo. I've talked about this. Seth Lugo is my number one target, but everyone's going to want Seth Lugo. So there's going to be a lot of teams in the mix for him. Severino is a much different case. A lot more money to take on. Very few teams are going to be able to get him. The Mets, financially, you would think, are one of those teams that are able. So fascinating if they bring back Severino and if he can make it click, not pitching in that Sacramento ballpark. You're watching Mets Daily. Smash that thumbs up. Let us know in the comments. Would you trade for Luis Severino, and what would you trade to get Sevy back in a Mets uniform? Time to get rolling, guys. Mets Brewers tonight. Need a W. Let's turn this thing around. July is here. Smash that thumbs up. Subscribe to Mets Daily. Become a Mets Daily Insider for $5 a month. I'm Jake Brown, at Jake Brown Radio on all social media, where I do pregame and postgame shows as well on TikTok Live. So follow me on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, and my YouTube at Jake Brown Radio. Have a great day. Happy July, everybody. We'll see you this weekend in the Subway Series, and we'll talk to you tomorrow right here on Mets Daily. Thanks for watching.